speaking of cutting corners, that might be the perfect segue into our movie review, which is Catch Me If You Can.
Dude, you're getting good at this.
The absolute king.
You're getting good at this, dude. Did you practice that one?
No,
That was good.
But you guys are talking about cutting corners and not paying, and I was like,
I like it.
Hey, thanks. Yeah. So Frank
Abagnale.
Not
Not Abagnale, not Abagnale, Abagnale.
That's an unfortunate
ultimate-
name.
the ultimate con man.
Yes.
Abagnale? Why is that unfortunate?
It's not as cool as it should be for a scam artist.
I think he made it pretty damn cool, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do have some really good notes about this.
What you
So
got?
this was my pick.
All right, hit us with this stuff.
So I picked Catch Me If You Can, one of my all-time favorites. And I
Is
just love it.
this a Mount Rushmore?
I mean, it's in there. Yeah, probably the top.
I remember seeing this movie, and then when I rewatched it, it jumped up quite a bit on the list for me. I did enjoy it. I knew I was like, "This is a good movie. This is a really good movie."
So the movie was based on the book written by also Frank Abagnale, titled "Catch Me If You Can."
So wait, time out. He made a bunch of money ripping people off, and then he wrote a book about ripping people off and made a bunch of money, and then he worked for the FBI and made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Yes.
This guy can't lose.
Allegedly.
Hey, this mofo don't miss.
I'll get to that. There's a lot of alleged
All right.
tales of this guy.
Okay.
What a winner.
But I will throw in there that this is directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
So, which it threw me off a little because I was thinking this may be a different style or whatever. But of all of the Steven Spielberg movies, you guys can probably think of a few popular ones over the years. He's a legend.
Who's Steven Spielberg?
This is upon like reviews online and everything, ranked 4th of all his movies.
Really? Wow.
Yes, and this is in a class of E.T., Schindler's List, Jaws.
E.T.?
E.T. is number 1.
It smokes E.T.
That's another, era thing.
It's
I
a
don't
classic. It is a classic movie.
E.T. sucks.
Yeah.
dude.
So
I've never seen it.
yeah, E.T. number 1.
Don't watch it. It sucks, dude.
Schindler's List 2, Jaws number 1.
Charles, cult
3.
classic. I'll allow it.
Also, other movies by Spielberg: Indiana Jones,
Tight.
Lincoln,
Okay.
critically acclaimed.
Yes.
Saving Private Ryan, which we still need to get to. Dave has not seen that movie.
That's a good
No,
one.
we can't because Dave, he's seen too many people shooting people. It's fine.
No, Dave likes World War II.
No,
Have you paid
we're gonna
attention to the
give
cast
Dave
and-
a break.
I like World War II movies.
Yeah, no,
I like war movies.
we will be
sure.
reviewing Saving Private Ryan at some point because Dave hasn't seen
Shaving Ryan's Privates.
it. So
The spoof. The
yes.
spoof. You ever seen that one?
yes. So
haven't.
the cast in the movie: Tom Hanks, Leo DiCaprio, Christopher Walken, one of my favorites.
He is good.
Amy Adams
Yep.
was in this,
Yeah,
and
Amy Adams.
Jennifer Garner, which I didn't remember her
Garner's
being
in
in
it.
this, but she was.
Who else is in it? There's other people in it. There's another woman that he's like into for a little bit. That works at the bank. That shows him
Yeah,
I can't remember. her
Those
name,
are
but
the-
Early on, she's too quick though.
Those are the
She's-
main ones.
She's here and there.
Yeah.
But if I didn't throw this out, 2002 is when this movie came out. It won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. And then, so the movie's...
Who's the supporting actor?
Tom Hanks. I'm assuming.
That's what I would assume too. But
Christopher Walken.
Oh,
See,
okay.
see.
Yeah. Which I didn't
little
love.
girl.
I didn't love his character in the movie.
I disagree. I think
Maybe because that's a cultural thing. Because he's like a New Yorker, so I didn't really like understand.
No, I think Christopher Walken had a lot of depth to his character. Like he, at face value, he's a scumbag that can't make it work.
Mhm.
He might be a swindler that just made it, yes or that. But I think the deeper you dive into his character, he is grooming his son to be how he is.
Yeah.
And he sees the potential in his son. And he just it's just like a dad who wants their kid to be great at baseball because he was a great baseball player.
You think he's a scumbag?
His
Why?
dad.
Yeah. What did he do that was scummy?
Well, he was always he wasn't paying his taxes. He was always trying to dodge the IRS. All this.
Oh.
I'm just saying he was I'm not saying he's like a scumbag
He wasn't the
in
best
the normal
role
sense of the word,
model
but
as
I'm
a
saying
father.
he was always well, we're gonna win this battle. He's always making himself like the big the good guy.
Yeah.
But really, he's probably doing some illegal stuff or not paying his taxes or whatever else. And his son just starts. At first, he's like, "Yeah, Dad, we're gonna win."
Yeah.
And then his son's really like, "Oh, this is how the game's played." And so then when he realizes his son has taken on the role to the umpteenth degree, he's always covering for him because he's like, dude, he's gonna get him because, and then his son's like, I'm gonna get our money back. I'm gonna get it. It all. I just think. I think he was a great character.
In the movie, I love the fact that he's just like, you think I'm going to give up my son? And he's like specifically lying about, you know, when he's asking him questions. But I just, sometimes when he's just like, where are you going tonight, Frank? You know, where are you going? You know, where are you going to be? And I'm like,
somewhere, what does he say? Somewhere
tropical.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's he talking about? But that maybe that's like a New Yorker banter.
I just think it's like he's cooking like something extravagant up in his head about his son. And his son's like, yes.
But he's just, I don't know. He's always just talking nonsense. And I'm like, what is he saying?
No, he was great, dude. He was great.
I think I think he's a bit part. It was a small part, but he's memorable though.
I love his acting.
Like he did a great job.
I love the actor.
He was an amazing supporting actor.
Have you won the Academy Award?
Maybe the Oscar winner.
So the other interesting part about the movie and like the true life events is, so he committed these crimes during 1964 to 1969 in real life.
Yes.
Where he posed as an airline pilot, posed as a doctor, a lawyer. The other part that they didn't put in there was a university professor.
Yeah.
Yes. All while forging $3 million in fraudulent checks.
Crazy.
Which in today's worth is about $30 million.
Jeez.
So it was so easy too.
Dude, like
he literally just watched movies and read some stuff and was like, I gotta do this.
This is something that I think today checks should not exist anymore.
No.
They should just not. They are
and they
way
still do.
too. Yes. Like why are we using checks?
Yeah.
Like there's your information on that. What's on your check? Your name, your address, your routing number, your account number. Here you go. Like I just think I think checks are so antiquated. And even in 1969, they're like just rife with fraud.
Well, I think it's hilarious how like today if a check bounces or something happens to it, you get alerted within 12 hours.
Exactly.
They're like 3 weeks behind this guy.
Yes.
They're trying to figure out where he's at based on where he's banking out of and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like 3 weeks. This guy's everywhere. He's moving every 3 weeks.
And
all this stuff.
they're almost making fun of the lead investigator, Tom Hanks' character, of like being like, hey, so here's a number. He's forging his numbers. And the guy's like, my wife balances a checkbook, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And they're like, this dude's committing real fraud.
Yes.
And they just think it's funny back then or whatever. But
his jokes are funny.
The other also true facts in this movie is he committed all these crimes from the age of 16 to 21.
Yes.
And retired to France at the age of 20 and was arrested at 21 in France. But just the fact that he was able to...
Oh, so when they caught him in France in the movie, he was actually he's like, I'm retiring. I'm done.
In real life, yeah.
He did.
And in the movie.
And they're just like, oh, we got you.
But yeah,
in the movie, he was like making
He was still making checks.
But the crazy part about it, so there was a 10-year period from the age of 16 to 26, all this happened. So from 16, he started these crimes. And then 26, 21, he got arrested. Jail, 26, he was out of jail and then working for the FBI. So all this happened during almost his adolescent years.
Yeah, well,
that's wild.
But also it does make some sense to me because I think I've told you this before. I had some homies in high school that were printing off their own $1 bills. And then they'd bumped it up to $5 bills and $10 bills because they were just buying a Nutty Buddy at lunch or whatever, or paying for, they'd wrinkle it up and it was good enough. The lunch ladies didn't notice. Yeah. And then one guy's like, well, if it costs $2, I give her a $5, I get $3 back. I'm washing money.
Yeah, you're laundering it. Yeah.
And there was a couple dudes who were pretty good at it. And then their homies got involved and it was all offset.
Yeah.
And there was legit cops came to the campus. I don't think anything ever really happened, but they basically put the fear of God into them like, hey, morons.
Yeah, for a long
this
time.
is a big deal.
Yeah. See that's
but it's that easy. You're just like,
well, that seems much harder to me because you're forging like an official government document. Which
no,
is
but I'm just saying like how like if you get away with it like a 6 like at 35 at 25 whatever, you're just like, I don't know, it's gonna catch up to me this and that. At 16 you're like, worked on a couple times.
The other funny part about like doing research on this movie where it's like fact versus fiction is fact, he did forge checks. Fact, happened during the time that he said it, that it did, like during 16 to 21 or whatever. There is some discrepancies saying he was like arrested or incarcerated during some of these times, so some of them add up. But the other part is journalists, other investigators or whatever say that they have not been able to prove that he actually did pose as a doctor within a hospital.
Okay.
Attorney's office, Pan Am, which he also, which he was.
So they're saying that he didn't. He just was stealing the checks.
And you got to So you got to remember.
Either way,
he wrote. You got to remember he wrote this book. So I got some.
Yeah,
I got some takes on this. He wrote the book this movie is based off of, right? And so you got to think you're going off a dude who is an all-time great liar, right?
Yes,
you watch the movie. You got to remember, and
maximum standard. Brother.
He even is on record of saying, even if 50% of what I said was true, it's still a pretty good story, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
However, I will throw out there. So all the doctor, all the stuff. So he did forge the checks. That is claimed. It's proven.
Doctor, do you concur?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But I will throw out there.
Yeah.
I will throw out there though, if we all work for corporations and stuff. If there's no proof that that person, like lied and worked his way into your corporation, why would a big corporation admit that
sure.
happened, right? Because you think,
especially the doctors.
a doctor, right? If you were on staff when somebody got hurt, right?
Yes.
Liability, boom, you're done, right?
This guy's
Attorney's office, if you were on the hook of any time when he was in there, boom, you're done. Pan Am, if there was a flight that went down, anybody got hurt, anything happened, you're done, right? So Berkeley College, like all these places, you're not going to willingly admit that, hey, this guy worked his way in our system.
True.
So I will throw out there that,
but he actually
he's a liar.
He was always flying the jump seat.
Yeah, but they never proved that he actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just saying, but like they never portrayed him as like the guy.
And it's also in the 60s too. So it's hearsay, which I'm obviously leaning towards like, yeah, I hope all this is true. It's an amazing story, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm also leaning towards like, nobody's been able to prove it, but also why would any of these people admit that actually happened to them? Because that's embarrassing.
No, for sure.
You're holding yourself liable for millions, even to,
I
mean, statute of limitations are probably up for all that stuff, but
also though, you're skipping over the part. If someone like comes into my company and they lie their way through and they're just like show up one day and they get their own fake email or whatever. And they're like, hey, this is my name's Johnny Two Sticks and I'm the new MSL in your region. Yeah. We'd all be like,
sure,
nice to meet you, bro.
Yeah, why
like,
would you?
I'm not fact checking anything. Like, tight, dude. Cool.
I was gonna say of all these,
and I email him. He's like, let me double check on that, and he like does his own Google real quick. I'd be like, thanks, bro.
Yeah.
I was gonna say to you guys like, or propose a question of,
you're gonna propose?
Yeah. Of all the things that you could fake or whatever today, like, right, because it's not the 60s anymore. You can't like just put a fake sticker on something. I still think like you could fake your way through a college diploma.
For sure.
I mean,
you don't need to anymore. Just
you could just say, because
pass.
I've heard so many stories of CEOs of companies and stuff that don't have degrees, and you just get into company, they don't call.
Yeah.
Like
that was kind of the joke at my old company. I'm not going to say the name on here. But they basically said anyone from blank company has won 5 President's Awards, which is like the top 10% sales rep or whatever in the country, because they're not going to answer a call from someone else that's poaching you. So it's like when you would leave or you're done with your job, you just put whatever you want on your resume. Ain't nobody going to call. To your point, I don't have to go to Harvard. Yeah. I could just say I graduated from Harvard.
Yeah. And he was so smart in the movie and in real life too, right? Where he's 17 states away and he's saying, I graduated from Berkeley in California while he's in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's jumping all around. So, and like I said,
what's so smart about that, bro? Because he knows a map?
No, because he's distancing himself from where he's saying that he went.
Because he's not saying I went to Atlanta A&T.
But he's also, I
mean, that's just like, that's pretty common sense. That's not too, like, you're like, don't give him that much credit on that.
People who, he's still alive, but people who personally know him or whatever say like his greatest skill wasn't his intellect or anything like that. It was his ability to tell a story.
Yeah, his charisma was off the charts.
Yes, his charisma.
He's reading people.
I'm telling you, bro.
Taking advantage of a high trust society. Like, because he saw the guy coming out of a hotel with like stewardesses.
Hire
I'm
mile
gonna
stewardesses.
go get like
An internship
the uniform,
program.
right? He gets
Yeah.
the uniform, and literally he wasn't even planning on being a pilot at first. He talked to the person at the front desk, and she was like, "Oh, are you the deadhead?" And he's like, he had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
He was like, "Yeah, oh yeah, I'm the deadhead."
It's been a while since I've done this.
Yeah,
Remind me.
Yes. And he's like, and then he figured out what that is. Like, oh, literally just putting on this
Yeah.
uniform,
I'm a dog.
and like he's taking advantage of the fact that people, and especially in the '60s, were like,
I love the fact.
"Who's gonna make that
Also,
up?
it
Who's
was
gonna lie?"
always about the girl, dude. Like a typical 16-year-old. He's just like, he sees a pilot with chicks around him. He's like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
He sees a doctor with money and with chicks around him. He's like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah. I also love the fact that he's just like back in the 60s or whatever, it's just like, okay, so you're not going to give me a check or do any stuff because you don't know me. I walk in this bank and they say it several times.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
don't know you. And he's just
Yeah.
like, I'm going to put on a pilot's uniform. He walks in, they're like, all right, you need $1,500 back in cash.
Yeah.
Cool. We got
Yeah.
you. And it's just like,
Exactly.
what?
Yes. He just noticed like, oh, people don't even question.
Yeah.
People don't even question that guy.
I
He can
also,
do whatever he wants.
I also thought about in economy on a commercial flight, how uncomfortable it is. And this dude flew supposedly like millions of miles for free or whatever on the deadhead seat. Did you see the deadhead seat?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That was a S10
Mhm.
back seat, like seat that flipped out.
But it was
Back-
My guy had to have so many back problems.
Bro,
and
back
stuff.
before-
$0
like-
and 0 cents.
Yeah, back before 9/11, my dad,
No
air
way.
traffic controllers could fly. They called it the jump seat. It wasn't like a dead, but it was like if there's extra room on the plane, or if no one is in the jump seat in that third seat in the cockpit, you're an air traffic controller. You can jump in for free. Nope, you don't pay.
That's cool.
And he did that a lot, like when he was younger. And he's like, dude, it's so uncomfortable. But he's like, it's also awesome because you're in the cockpit. You're talking to the pilots. So he's like, you don't think about it. But he's like, because there's no recliner. You're straight up and down, plastic little bench. It's 100%. But I would do it for a free flight.
Yeah.
It's taboo in our culture, right, in the United States, to say no to people, right? The expectation is called the norm of obligation. The expectation is that when somebody asks you something, that you say yes to it, right? And people take it. Can people like this, or just even just regular run-of-the-mill people, can take advantage of that fact? Whereas, like, I'm going to ask you a question. It's going to put you in an awkward situation because you're going to feel weird saying no to it because that's how most people in society operate. Yeah. Right? Like, it's like if I go to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, like, hey, can I go take a, like I don't know. So for example, you come to my house, you're like, hey, I'm tired. Can I go take a nap on your bed? That's a weird question, right? And you're putting that person in a weird spot to have to say no to that.
Yeah.
And he's taken advantage of that all over the place. Where he's like, I'm just gonna think nobody's gonna call me out. Nobody's actually gonna call me out on any of this. I'm
That's
just gonna be
interesting.
confident.
Because I saw recently on a podcast, like this comedian that got famous on Kill Tony. He's from some like Albania, like some one of those kind of countries. And he was talking about how he's like, you Americans, like you just are always obligated to do different things.
Yes.
He's like, we have a word in my country's language that pretty much means like, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Which basically means I don't have anything going on, but I don't want to help you.
Exactly.
Like it's like if hey man,
Exactly.
can you help me move?
Yes.
This guy'd be like, whatever the word is, like I'd rather not. But
Yeah.
in America, if you do that, you'd be like what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you have to come up with an excuse of like, hey, I'm busy, I'm doing. I always tell be like, I'm washing my lettuce, bro. I'm sorry, because it's like a joke, but I'm also like, hey, you get like, I'm just not gonna.
I
Do
also feel like
perfect
there's.
example
Yeah.
of the normal obligation.
Yeah.
Can you help
I
me
also
move?
feel like you can't blanket that across our entire country because I feel like there's like a Midwestern, and maybe we're biased because we're from the Midwest. I feel like maybe in the Midwest more you could across the board say that
Midwest
too.
nice,
But I can't say. I would say like East Coast and stuff. I don't think you could blanket that on there.
No,
I feel like
I-
East Coast is not the same culture.
I disagree.
As Midwest people.
no matter that people are in your face or brash or whatever, they still feel an obligation to.
help.
Yes,
Maybe
like I
not
grew up in Albuquerque. I told Teresa like the difference between people where I grew up and here is like they'll fight you just as quick as they'll give you the shirt off their back, but they're still gonna feel the obligation of like my buddies
Yeah.
are still like, hey, can you help me move? I'm like,
Yeah, like maybe not strangers as much, like you're saying, in places like that, but people you know is I would say again I don't
Okay.
know for sure,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
people you know, family, friends, like I bet it's exactly the same.
but in other countries they're like,
Other
no, I
countries,
don't want
yeah.
to help you.
I do think it is a cultural.
You know what
thing
they have a thing called a moving company. Go Google one, right?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Like
So-
we're not gonna say that to your uncle.
So like the problem with that is like now there's an extra layer, right? Now you should, as the you have to be on your mind of like, okay, I'm not gonna even ask you that question because I don't want to put you in the situation. If you're a person who like thinks about, like, cares about other people,
I do that a lot.
right? You like, I don't even want to ask, but you run to people who don't care about that.
Yeah.
And they are very manipulative in that
Yeah.
way, and they can easily deny that they're doing anything wrong because there's like, what, I'm just asking, like you know what I mean?
Right.
They have this whole thing. It's like, no, you know what you're doing.
So-
You know exactly what you're doing.
On the flip, though, I know, like when I notice that, I always specifically just give those people no's because I'm like, I'm not. No, I know you're gonna have 12 other people that I feel bad for.
Yeah.
So no, kick rocks, nerd.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nerd.
So let's backtrack here. So let's close a loop on
The
our
movie was
here.
great. I give it an 8.5.
Ooh.
Your rating doesn't count. This is for Dave.
I'm
But
just
do
telling
appreciate
you,
it because this is my pick, so I do love that.
I like the
I hope
movie
you're not
a lot.
persuading Dave's rating here, but yes, one of my all-time favorite movies.
It's good.
Great
I would give
cast.
it 7.5.
Bro, a half point above Interstellar. This is wild. I wish we never watched Interstellar. I'm so upset
Yeah.
about your score on Interstellar.
Yeah, I like most movies. Like most
This movie
most
is
movies
so-
are around 7.
This
So
movie is so
7.5.
much better than Interstellar, dude.
So
It's so much better.